What's up guys, and welcome back to WBC Builds, and welcome to another one of these weekly build challenges. So last week's build was that really small, narrow Second Empire townhouse from St. Louis, and I got to say it was quite hard to do. You guys took on the challenge, and I can show my 5 favourite at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around to see how they went. Now, speaking of weekly build challenges, to anyone that's just joining for the first time, or to anyone that needs a recap, the idea of this is each week I tell you guys to build something, a scene, a building, a structure, and then once you've built it, you head on over to our Discord, you go to the share your build section there, and you share it in there with the tagline, I was challenged to build this. Then once a week I go on through, I have a look for my 5 favourite, and I make noises that are akin to actually a land seal trying to find its way back to the water. And once I've done that, then I go on over and put them into the end of each week's video. Like I mentioned, you can join me after the time lapse and this build to find out what goes on with those. So speaking of this week's build, this is the Hope and Anchor from Islington in London. It's a nice late Victorian pub, and it's got a lot of detail on it. It's really hard to get that sort of into the shape and the size that it is. So let's jump on over into a time lapse so I can show you guys how I went about doing it. Okay, so this week's build, as I mentioned, is a pub built in that sort of late Victorian Queen Anne style. We've got a lot of details going on here. I struggled to get this sort of upper section done first. It was trying to work out what size arches I wanted. I originally went with 3 wide arches, and then I sort of played around with the upstairs section, which needed to have 2 wide windows, and you can see here I finally settled on it all being 2 wide. Now I'm using brick walls in spaces in between the main columns either side of the building, and this just helps give you a bit more depth, and you can get a bit more detail in there, as you can see I've done. Coming up to the roof, it's got quite a standard sort of pediment, and then you've got a parapet on top which is quite large. Coming around to the side, the design carries on. It's just got windows in either side of the columns, and that is pretty much how this build goes. It's quite a simple one, lots of detail like I mentioned, so good luck with that one. So let's get into a little showcase and see how that looks. And yeah, it's just one of those really sort of iconic buildings you would see in a town that actually has any Victorian in it. You can see here I've added this to my street of Georgian shops from a few weeks back. Okay then guys, I think it's time to head on over to the top 5 and see what you guys built last week with that lovely Second Empire townhouse. Right, we're on to the top 5. So this week I've seen quite a lot that are very similar, which is, I mean, understandable because there isn't much going on in this building, but I definitely have seen a lot of copying this week, so unfortunately I can't use a lot of the ones I did like. However, I have gone for my number 1 spot here. This is Dirty Soapy Bubbles with their quite nice, beautiful looking one. They've set it in the proper landscape with the Christmassy feel. I say Christmassy, I meant to say wintry. The wintry feel, along with just getting some trees around there. So that's a nice one there, Dirty Soapy Bubbles. Moving on to number 4, so we have Bar here, which is just a really nice, handsome looking one. Didn't go for too much more around it. Could have done with a landscape, but I think they've just nailed the building's proportions itself. I like the roof on this one. Moving on to number 3, so this one, apart from the quality of the screenshots, which I'm not sure what's happened to them, this build is quite good. They've gone for pretty much the entirety of the area, trying to take in as much from Google Earth as they can, including the rears of the buildings and the road behind it. So that was quite good there, Minecraft Spoonsville that is, although I'm not too sure what you've done to the images there. And then moving on to my number 2 slot, we have Matty, which I think, again, he featured in number 1 position last week. He's very good at these. He does do a lot of detail in them and he brings them to life. The buildings themselves are great. They are following on from the idea of what I did in my one with the green building next door, but still this is quite a nice build there, Matty. And then moving on to our number 1 spot, I found this one was probably the closest representation of the building. This is Goose's build. So Herr Goose is a builder and an admin on our server, and he has done a great job here. I believe this is his first time at trying one of these weekly build challenges. So Goose, great stuff there, really liked your build. So that has been this week's weekly build challenge. I hope you guys liked it. Have a go at this one. It's quite difficult. Like I said, there's a lot of detail to fit in there in quite a small space. But anyway guys, get inspired, get building, and I'll see you next time.